Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Whew, it's warm. Good morning, Lori. Great to see you. Good morning, Mom. It is a fry and egg on my head kind of a day. That's why my hair is still wet. Came right out of the shower, put it all in a clip, put it up because I figure the longer I stay damp, the more comfortable I'll be. That hardly ever happens. I'm in air conditioning at the moment. I hope that you are comfortable. It is a heat wave all over the place, as I'm sure you've noticed. What a crazy time! It's just June, but it is what it is. It's summer, right? But yeah, I hope nobody's suffering too much. It is hard to escape, particularly when you have so much humidity. So I'm so sorry about that if you're having a struggle. Hopefully you can be comfortable. It's the worst thing to not get comfortable, isn't it? But I'm very happy to see you. I'm just for the last few days I'm walking around with wet hair in beach clothes like that show Maud. Remember that show Maud with B. Arthur, and she always had like a giant moo on. I'm just doing that lately because it's like loose, comfortable, no crotch, no, I got a little bit of armpit stuff going on here. I like sleeveless better, but it is so hot. You really have to do what you can, however you look, right? Robin, great to see you. April, great to see you. Penny, great to see you. Kaz, I love seeing all these names pop up. Linda, great to see you. To everybody near and far. There are some people so far away that watch this. I always worry. I know I get emails sometimes, people who are having trouble figuring out how to log in to be able to comment, because I know it's not like you automatically can comment if you're not set up to do that. You can always send me an email at ribboncandyhooking.com if you're having a struggle with that. I'm not a technical person, but I have figured that particular thing out, and I could help with stuff like that. I'm happy to see everybody here. Kirsten, good to see you. Lisa, great to see you. So let me do a couple of reminders first before Dave, you're back. I'm so happy to see you. Beverly, I love your pumpkin. Beverly's working on a gothic pumpkin for a friend. The sugar skulls that I did, but it's a pumpkin rather than a skull head, but a bit gothic looking with dark colors and dark roses and a little bit of blood for Halloween. It's super cool. It's very cool. I never think to do things like that. I'm always thinking about the bright colors and everything. It's so neat to see someone do something different color schemes, some different ideas. I just love that. That's my favorite. I love seeing any pattern that I put out that people do. I feel like a rock star when I see a pattern that I made that someone has hooked. It's always way better than mine because I'm not the best hooker. But I just love to see the color choices. Catherine, great to see you. Barbara, great to see you. Barbara, I wanted to talk to you about the Van Gogh stuff too. I shot you an email. I want to talk about that a little bit because I love your idea. Donna, great to see you. Cindy, great to see you. I'm so happy that you're all popping on. So I'll just remind you, I put out the new set, Susan, Kansas, great to see you. Cynthia, great to see you. I put out the new set yesterday, the Elizabethan set. I forgot to say it was kind of funny. I put out the Elizabethan set yesterday and I called it the Midsummer Night's Dream. And it is based on colors with funny names that relate to, colors that were popular, dyes that were popular during the Elizabethan period. Sometimes they're referred to as drab colors, but there are a lot of indigos on that palette. Indigos and purples, of course, those were the royal colors, but I included them. I did very little on that palette with blue, orange. This is the swatch sheet, but there are a lot of what you would call drab colors. You always have to remember when you're hooking, there's some brights here, dark, light, dull, bright. That is the secret of color planning. So there's a lot of colors that would be considered drab on their own, but you need a drab color if you're going to pop a bright color, like a bright sort of honey mustard color next to it. But a bright purple. I mean, this is just my favorite palette I've ever done. I said it was a thing of 30, but I forgot that I had plain white on there, like undyed white. I felt like I had to put that in because it was different than the other two whites I had. One is like more of a parchment and the other is more of like a spilled milk color, but this one is truly white. So this is out now. That's available. A bunch of them sold yesterday, and it comes with the image of Shakespeare, the tavern sign of Shakespeare, on fiber tape, which is that transfer medium. So you can put it down on the backing of your choice. I've got, I don't know how many emails this week, people saying, I'm starting punch needle, can I use linen? And the answer is no. If you're using punch needle, you have to use monk's cloth. You need to have that stretch. Linen is very brittle. It doesn't stretch as much. It's just not going to work. So definitely monk's cloth for punchers, but you could put that fiber-tape pattern down on any backing that you choose. Monk's cloth, linen are certainly the most popular. Rug warp is popular with some people, but it's very, very tight, and you really don't want to be hooking wide cuts, primitive cuts with it. It's just going to be very hard on your hands pulling on such a tight weave. And many people still hook with burlap. And you know, I sometimes hook with burlap. I don't have that sort of crazy dark thing about it that most people have. Although I am aware, and I always remind that it does, you know, it is prone to rot because if it gets damp, it is going to rot. Really depends on what you're going to do with it, but it's the least durable of the backings, and it's the one with the least longevity. But in terms of price, it's the one that is remarkably inexpensive. So it depends on what you're doing and where you are. But that set is out. Van Gogh is tomorrow night. Some new people signed up yesterday. I'm very excited. There's still room. I could take a couple more people. It's going to be a great class talking about Van Gogh's life, talking about his main motifs, his inspiration, parts of his life that I had never, I mean, I've talked a lot and studied a lot about Van Gogh over the years in art school. There were things that I found out in researching this class that I didn't know about him that I think had massive weight and bearing on the way that he painted and his techniques, his choices. So I think it's a very good class, and I do have the idea for the next class, but I'm going to make that a bit of a cliffhanger until Thursday morning or cocktail night because, I want to finish the Van Gogh class before we're looking at the next thing. So those two things are coming out. The dye class is coming out. But right now, I just want to get back to what we're talking about. I've been feeling so, I don't want to say melancholy. I've just been feeling like I just wish that we could time travel at least once a month and be together and have a situation where you can be around other women, other men, Dave, I'm sorry, other people, other pets, other everything, and just hook with them and work with them the way that people did in the middle of the century. I feel so sorry that that's completely lost, you know. Sports aren't lost, like other hobbies aren't lost, but rug hooking is lost to the extent that we just, you know, it would be extraordinary if you had a group that you could just say, do you mind if I come over on Thursday and we just companionably sit side by side and hook and chat, you know. Just doesn't happen. So that's the main reason I love going through these old books, digest catalogs, because like the thumbnail I put up, you just get such a sense of what that time must have been like. I just want to say before I get back into this book, Debbie, thank you so much. I forgot I woke up a little bit early today, and I had some dyeing to do, but it was just too hot first thing in the morning at by 6 a.m. it was already too hot. So I did a tiny bit of dyeing, but I sat down and did a blog for a while because I had made a set of Cape Cod swatches. And by the way, all of the swatches I do are like 14 by 4, so they're much bigger than regular swatches. And just remind yourself, when you picture that size, that when you hook it, it'll be about a quarter of that size. So it's not like they're massive swatches on their own, but when you've got a big pack of them, like the Cape Cod set is 20, the Elizabethan set, the Midsummer set is 31, collectively it turns into a lot of fabric. And what people do with them typically is hit or miss patterns. They either put them in their stash as extra colors, put the yellows with the yellow stash you already have, if you're that organized. I'm not. But if you are, that is great. You could add them to the stash. I always include a pattern. I didn't with the Cape Cod because that was an extra set that I put out during vacation. But like the Shakespeare Tavern sign comes as an idea because it's broken up in such a way that you could use that swatch set to hook that particular image. Any hit or miss image, adding them to your stash, and of course you can order any color individually. If you say like, I love the Provincetown at Night color, can I order a full yard of that for a massive background piece? The swatches are good for that too. So it's one of those things, sooner or later, hopefully sooner, you get around to using them. But I did sit down and write a long blog this morning because I wanted to talk a little bit about the colors, particularly for people who had never been to the Cape, also for people who have been to the Cape and miss it all the time like I do when I'm not there. So it was a bit of a long blog, but I always try to make the blog a bit personal and tell you something about the thing that I'm selling. I don't just like vlog stuff. I like it to be a bit more personal than that. So thank you for reading. It's up on the Ribbon Candy Hooking website, and I also posted it on my Facebook group, which is Rug Hooking and Punch Needle Club, in the Ribbon Candy Hooking Club on Facebook. Thanks, Debbie. I'm glad that you enjoyed that. Yeah, Barbara, we need to talk about this great idea because Van Gogh is so in the front of everybody's mind right now with this amazing exhibit going around the country. Oh, April, you are lucky to have a group to get together with. You know, I shouldn't say that there is nothing, right, because there's ATHA. I belong to the Quiet Corner in Connecticut. I belong to Chapter 1, the Nutmeg. I belong to the Little Rhodey Thrummers right over the line. I belong to the Quabbin group, which is right over the Massachusetts line. So that is very, very nice too. With the ATHA meetings, the structure is often different because there's often a speaker, and that is great. It's like getting a show for free. It's like a Broadway show, but something you're super interested in right in front of your eyes for no money if you're a member of ATHA. But yeah, I guess what I really wish I had, and maybe this is what you have, is just to be able to sit around and talk with no main event. You know, just sit and chat and do it on a regular basis so you can really keep up with each other and each other's projects. It just seems like it would be so nice to have that. What a gift. Thanks, Mom. Oh, Lisa says the Magdalenas got together last night for the first time since shutdown. That is fantastic. You're gonna have. I'm gonna have to look it up. But you know, when I do finally take a trip to Pennsylvania, which will be probably early fall now because it's just so hot and I'm getting so booked up with classes. I wonder if I could come to pay to come to a meeting and sit and hook too. I would love to do that. Joy, good to see you. Oh, thanks, Linda. I was thinking about you a few times when I wrote it because I know that you know the Cape and I know you have memories of it. So I'm glad that it brought some of those memories back. So many things, you know, are closed, like the Crazy Wild Animal Farm with the inappropriate latches, you know, the hook and eye latches on the cages of these enormous cats. Things like that are gone, not surprisingly. But so much of it is the same, and it is so charming to think about it and talk about it and remember it. You know what I forgot to say about the Elizabethan blog was yesterday when I launched it. It is Elizabethan, right? So it's called Midsummer's Night, I think, or Midsummer Night's Dream, and it's after, of course, the Shakespeare play. So I have a lot of references to Shakespeare in the titles of the individual wools. And of course, he lived during the Elizabethan period, and Queen Elizabeth was one of his patrons. But yesterday was Elizabeth's dad, who was Henry VIII. It was his birthday yesterday. Of course, he's been dead for years, of course, and he was an evil person. But I just thought it was funny that there was a significant Tudor birthday yesterday when I was putting out this Elizabethan themed set, and I knew it because I watched a special on him in the morning. Somebody put together a little sort of montage of facts about Henry VIII. And I've read his really thick biography, which is actually super interesting. I never watched those Tudor shows and stuff. I'd probably really enjoy those. But it fit very well into the whole Elizabethan thing. Lori, how do you find out about your local chapter? That's a great question. So if you go on to ATHA, which is full out the Association of Traditional Rug Cooking Artists, you can search for your chapter. So you search by region. They have like a list that you can click on, and when you click on the one that's closest to you, it shows you what days, like, you know, this day of the week, once a month, the group meets, like the third Saturday, you know, of the month, or the second Tuesday or something. It'll be different from group to group, but you should be able to search by location or put your location in and search. And there's two ways to subscribe to ATHA to get more information on this. When you belong to ATHA, when you belong to a chapter, it means that you can go to the ATHA meetings and you benefit from whoever is there in terms of being a speaker or whatever event is happening. All of that is free for the year. And you can go to an ATHA meeting without paying, just show up the first time, decide if you like it, and then decide if you want to join. That's always encouraged, at least among the chapters that I belong to. It's always encouraged. Go first, see if you like it, see if you feel like good chemistry with the people, if you like the vibe of the place, if getting there wasn't too much of a hassle, all of important factors. So that's part of ATHA, and the other part of ATHA is the magazine they do, which is on a par with Rug Cooking Magazine. I actually prefer it. I think it's fantastic. ATHA Magazine as a subscription is different, and that's filled with information too, and that has a real breakdown of all the different chapters and projects that they're doing. Catherine often writes what's going on in the Midwest with that chapter there. So different chapters have different features, and it's still about ATHA, but belonging to the magazine is different than belonging to the chapter. They're not belonging to one doesn't give you membership to the other, so they're very different. But I subscribe to the magazine, and I belong to several chapters. And in general, you can chime in if you want, but my memory, I always renew. So my memory of joining is something like maybe $30 a year, something like that. Does that sound right? It's not a significant amount for all of the fun that you can have, assuming you like the people in your group who show up for ATHA. So let's look at this again. I always get like so late in the episode before we get into the meat of the thing. Oh, Lisa, I would love that. We meet the last Monday of the month in the evening. Okay, so that would be great. So when I go, I'm gonna plan around that in the hope that I can join in, and I'll hook something Magdalena while I'm there. Of course, that would be so fun. I feel like I also want to go to the. I'm stopping in a second. Philadelphia Museum of Art, the Rocky Steps, right? Da 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 da. Because they have so much fracture art, Pen Dutch art, all this completely copyright free, fantastic, like sort of early American, Scandinavian inspired art. That's very good for hooking. It crosses over a lot with the kinds of designs we see in traditional rug hooking. Every time I look at that museum, it would be, I think, gosh, I've got to get there. I haven't been there since my touring days when I took a busload of kids through with the Smithsonian and couldn't look at anything. So these hooking digests, just to recap from yesterday, are put out by the Yankee Peddler Hooked Rug Studio. And this is the era of Ruth Davis, who takes over from Charlotte Stratton as the boss, the person who runs the Yankee Peddler. And she starts publishing these series of digests that are staple bound books, very personal, very sort of insider, also very, very friendly and filled with information. So we were looking yesterday, I used this thumbnail of Mrs. Larini Loy. So that's what I used today for our photo, just sitting there doing her hooking. And I'm going to remind you that this compo behind, they put on one of the following pages, and you could hook it. And they told you all the shades, where to put all of the shades. I mean, it was very forthcoming. These publications were extremely, again, friendly in tone, which is a big deal because some publications from this period can be very like, and then you do this and then you do that, and if you've done this, you've messed it up. So get your color remover out and fix it. But this is very friendly in tone, and it's a little bit ill organized. That's one of the only things about it that can be challenging. There's not real headings on pages, and you don't know when you've ended one story and you're on to the next. It's hardly a criticism for what this is. It's a gift. So there's one page that I thought was interesting that said, the article printed below was sent to Charlotte Stratton by Mrs. Larini Loy, who we just saw a picture of in Arlington, Virginia, a graduate of the Stratton Teaching Training School. So this is something we've talked about, that Charlotte Stratton actually certified teachers. There are a handful of people, most famously Pearl McGowan, but there are a handful of people in this era who are certifying. And we know from our, not last Friday night cocktail night, but the Friday night before, with the, gosh, what was it, Helen? I already dropped the book, didn't I? Help me out if you remember. I already lost the last name because I think of her just as Helen right here. Helen Cather Talent. That she had trouble getting certified until she found Charlotte Stratton. I'm not saying at all that I think that the sort of criteria for being accepted for a certification, to take on a certification, was any easier with Charlotte. I think she was just a very easygoing, friendly person who wanted everybody to succeed and have a chance. And I think for that reason, she probably certified more people than we think. It's just not the name that you always hear. You always hear about Pearl McGowan certified people. And we know that there are so many people that are Pearl McGowan certified now that do excellent teaching in more modern techniques too, not just the shading and the dyeing, but the punch needle and everything. And there is a collection of rugs that is associated with the Pearl McGowan Teaching Library that can travel between teachers so that teachers can actually show some of the original Pearl McGowan patterns in great detail in person in front of groups of students. So there is a lot to be said for that too. But I don't think we hear about the Charlotte Stratton School of certifying rug hookers as often as we should, and certainly not as often as I would like to. But in any case, this rug was written by Lorany, and she talks about, the title of the article is Hooking Rugs Like Paintings. Now, we already know that the sort of style, that the accepted style, the most esteemed rugs of this period are very realistic, heavily shaded rugs. That is just what was in at this moment. We moved far away from Art Deco when the pendulum swung, and we got very much into realism in rug hooking. Shading, using sets of swatches. You would buy sets of swatches to get the finest change of color. You could work on a flower with 40 different shades of pink or red in it. It was the thing at the moment. It was a blip on the sort of radar. It was a moment in time, a wrinkle in time. it doesn't mean that today that is the right way to hook. It's one of many ways to hook. And I think we're a bit more open at this point, talking about, I like to hook in a very realistic style. I like photorealism. I like graphic stuff. I like to outline my stuff like Tiffany stained glass windows. We're a bit more aware now that you are not a bad rug hooker if you don't hook in a style that looks like paintings. It is your choice what style you would like to hook in. Now we have got a giant grab bag of styles. We can look at them all and decide in this moment how I feel like hooking this piece. Tomorrow I might do a thing that looks like a painting, and the next day I might do something that looks like a Hutchinson, real graphic, cartoony. But we are more aware now that there is not a right way and a wrong way. That's the point that I'm making. But in this period of hooking, there really was not a lot of variety, and you did see people sort of striving with commercial patterns, certainly predominantly commercial patterns, to do work that was an exact copy of someone else's or mimicked to the T someone else's color palette, like Lorraine Eloy with the fruit compote. So these articles would have been extremely helpful at that time. It's a black and white article, right? There's not going to be any color in here. But she talks a little bit, it's very quaint. She talks about the art of rug hooking and how it was so popular in colonial America, which we know is not at all true right now. Sewn rugs with a needle war, but certainly not hooked rugs. So she talks a little bit about what was understood then to be the history. She talks about how in olden times housewives used to make their rugs out of necessity, and today they do it as a pleasant hobby, she says. So she sort of has a kind of introduction to what she's talking about, and then she gets quite detailed, describing how to do rug hooking, how to hold your hook and pull loops through, and then gets into colors and dyeing and using a foam cleaner, because she's using all of her rugs on the floor. These are not wall pieces. But just interesting articles. And again, when you're lucky enough to acquire these kinds of magazines and look through these articles, pages and pages of the upper left part of the apple versus the bottom right part of the apple, what exact color that would be to like the 32nd of a tablespoon kind of a thing. And for people who are, I'm a bit fly by the seat of the pants to a fault. But for people who like things to be very paint by number and specific to the grain of dye, powder, these books are still very helpful, because if you like things that way, if you like things to be very, very sort of method driven, you absolutely 1000% need to understand what your result will be, and 100% is not enough. Then these books are going to be great for that, because the detail is, for me, exhausting. For someone else, super helpful and necessary. So there's a lot to be said for that too. There's an advertisement for the Teacher Training by Correspondence course, and it says, this course was prepared by Charlotte Stratton at the request of hookers who wish to learn the Stratton method of hooking, for housewives who cannot leave their families, working women who have only their evenings at their disposals, and others with similar home duties and other calls on their time. This course is only to prepare experienced hookers to teach pupils. I won't read the whole thing, but it's interesting that they were offering a written course that I have not been able to find. It was like a night course for people that were studying at home, and they would, I'm sure, require to see some examples of your work so that they would be able to, for themselves, assure themselves that you were an experienced hooker, and that it would just be a small sort of leap for you to become a teacher. But again, this is like a great reference, this tantalizing reference to a certification that was once available. Thanks, Mom Yebby. Awesome to do. Thumbs up, share, like, anything you can with these videos to keep them visible for other people to find and hopefully enjoy. Patterns come up like this. This page was cut out and then put back in. Patterns like this, real sort of traditional eagle pattern, $5, just to give you an idea of the price at the time. Freedom Eagle, color plan by Mrs. C.E. Larkin. So they're advertising patterns not just from Stratton and Frost, but a few other people. When Ruth Davis takes the Yankee Peddler over, she designs too, and she designs in a very different style. And I'm going to show you an example of her style. This is called the ABC rug, the children's ABC rug. So this is kind of a sampler. It has a hopscotch calendar type quality to it. Very, very, very sweet. And I'm not cracking on it at all, but you can see that Ruth Davis's style in terms of drawing and designing was much more graphic and less realistic. a bit more whimsical and playful than the Frosts and the Strattons, right? Those were very traditional, coming from the early 20th century. Ruth Davis in the 60s is working in a more cartoony, line-driven style, but you're still going to get all of the shading and all of the tropes that go along with hooking in that period. She gives you, when she shows you this pattern, suggestions for a child's ABC rug, and she's telling you she's envisioning like an applique look, like a quilted applique look, giving you ideas for colors, telling you pastels would be better maybe than something else, but very, very helpful. And then for much of the digest, as I'm sure she feels she should and must, she puts in a lot of patterns that are Frost patterns, and these were two Stratton patterns by Charlotte. So it's a real mix in these digests. And yeah, and she shows this was an existing pattern that was quite popular at the time. It's called the Yankee Peddler, and this is like a tribute to Frost with his peddling wagon, right, from those days. I have seen this hooked quite a few times. It's a tough pattern. It's a lot of lines, but it is one of these things that's like the Blue Nose boat is signature to the Garrett patterns. The Yankee Peddler is, of course, signature to the Yankee Peddler patterns, or the Charlotte Stratton patterns. Came out before the Yankee Peddler was the shop and called the Yankee Peddler. So, and then they have advertisements for places that I just dearly wish were still there. The Colonial Remnant Shop, PPE, Center Street, Manchester, Connecticut. Now I know that street. It's not the best street anymore. That whole area is not the best. But at one time they sold all kinds of wool and swatches and remnants, and God, everything was dead cheap. For hookers and braiders, it was just amazing. Lots of ads, store in Providence, different places where you could go and get remnants to hook with, and then pages of questions, removing color, things like that. You know, incidentally, I was fooling around. I did dye late last night a little bit, and then early this morning a little bit, and I had some vintage packets, Cushing color remover. And I wonder if any of you have experimented with this before. I'll do a video with it, but I can't do a smell-o-vision video with it because, okay, it was late. It was heading toward 11 o'clock, and I put just a few small things in because somebody ordered a grab bag, and I wanted to have like a real strong Halloween orange and like a spooky, like chartreuse green. So I just threw a couple colors in, and I walked away because it was so hot near the stove. And when I came back, they were just too bright. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to take out one of those packets of Cushing color remover that I have, and I poured it in the pan. I didn't read the instructions. I just poured a ton of it in the pan, and I put the swatches in, and I saw it really leached out quite a bit of color. I can't say that, of course, I didn't use it according to the directions because I always first throw the directions away and then wonder how I should move forward. But, you know, I saw a lot of color coming out of both swatches. And in a way, I guess it married to itself, those colors kind of sitting in the pan and moving back and forth between two completely different swatches. I just was curious to see how much color would come out, and it was really not that much. But I could see how it could be helpful, maybe putting more in. I thought I put a ton, but maybe putting more in to just maybe soften or mellow something that was a bit too bright. It could be possible. But it was interesting. But the thing about it was it smelled like a baby's diaper full of chemicals and Indian food and even God knows what, but really, really, really specific. I've never smelled that smell before. Usually I like that, you know, it was like every scratch and sniff sticker ever put together with like a douse of kerosene and God knows, formaldehyde. It was intense. The smell was intense. I wondered if I was getting brain damage and if I was going to pass out, partly because of the heat, partly because the smell was just a bit cauliflower too. I'm stopping. A bit cauliflower too, but it was a bit of a deterrent, I guess is what I mean. I don't know that I would use that packet often. If, for example, I'd just eaten, that kind of thing, but it was intense, but it was interesting. So this book is filled with those kinds of things. I read you yesterday that little bit about, one of the questions was, can we see a picture of the Davises, Ruth and her husband? So I'm hoping I can get that future edition, because I don't think I have seen a picture of Ruth Davis. There's nothing about her on the internet in terms of looking at a picture of her. But, you know, pages and pages of women's exhibitions, lists, you know, laundry lists of blue ribbons, silver ribbons, red ribbons, pink ribbons, all kinds of ribbons. And, you know, there are a couple things at the end that I'm going to end on. More dye recipes and also food recipes. So, Health Cookies by Laura Dicey of Ashland, New Hampshire. She's using brown sugar, white sugar, corn flakes, coconut. So cute. And then somebody else sends in an a recipe for tart cranberry salad and chocolate date cookies and just good dressing. Just good. That's all you need to know is that it's going to be good. Lots of butter and lemon, so you know it's going to be good, and eggs, lemon pudding, just a nice page of recipes too, and then a couple pages of questions, and then, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me right now? Hold on. Is this? Okay, wait a minute. I just turned to this page, and I'm wondering, is that rug that I bought this weekend at the? Oh no. But it sure looks like it, doesn't it? I thought, are you kidding me? No, this is a snow pattern, right? This is a Virginia snow. I got all excited there. It's the wrong orientation, too. This is like landscape, and this one is portrait. But that was pretty close. That got me for a minute there. That got me. And then at the end of the book, I'm going to end on this note because, oh, look at this. Look at how cute this is. Christmas greetings to you all, and best wishes for a happy and healthy new year. And then she gives you this great line drawing that I bet you bunch of people copied and made into a rug or something, table runner or something. But, you know, two of the things that really struck me at the end was that they are advertising prominently, the last 2 pages, 2 products that were put out by Charlotte Stratton that are real specific. One of them is the Charlotte Stratton hooked rug hook. It is a fine hook for painting with rugs, and she uses it in parentheses, painting with rugs, just like Lauren Eloy said earlier in this edition. So the phrase painting with rugs must have truly been a thing, because this hook is the one for painting with rugs. I'm thinking, you know, it's a very fine hook because we're working with number 3s and less, I think. It's become very popular. Hookers everywhere love it because it fits the hand perfectly. Oh, Dave, you've used hair remover on wool protein fiber, on wool protein fibers. It works well, but yes, strong, unpleasant odors abound. Probably like hair dye, which I've been putting off too, that I'm going to have to do today because it's starting to look like Cruella de Vil. Interesting, Dave. That really is interesting. I might give that a shot too, because why not? You're right. Protein is protein. A protein fiber is a protein fiber, and wool certainly is one. Interesting. Dave, you are so good at shortcuts and running parallel to rules, like you're hooking into a dishcloth. I love the things that you come up with. You are so good at that stuff, and everything. So this hooked rug is advertised, and a lacing set is advertised. There's a lot of references I'm finding in anything to do with Charlotte Stratton on lacing. And what that means is that she's assuming that you're working on a floor frame, like a Chetty Camp frame, and that you're going to have the eternal problem of, you know, it's on like a roller. Your pattern is going to be taut from top to bottom, but side to side, gaping wide open. And we've talked in the past about how some women would take pantyhose, run them through the burlap, and tie them very tight to both sides. So you get that crossways, that horizontal tautness, as well as top to bottom. Top to bottom, not a problem. Side to side, huge problem. So Charlotte Stratton came out with something that was called a lacing set, constructed of heavy, durable canvas for attaching burlap securely to any hooked rug frame. The full lacing set cost $3.50. 2 17-inch side eyelet pieces were included. I'm going to show you what it looks like. But apparently you would attach this thing to your frame. It's like a universal lacing up set. You see all the little eyelet holes? I'm guessing you would have to sew, pin, probably sew to your burlap to get it to stretch sideways. But interesting. And then she put out her own frame, which she considered to be really superior, which perhaps it was. There's no reason to think why not. The Stratton table model folding hooked rug frame will take any pattern up to, and then the mimeograph didn't have ink at that point, so it doesn't say up to what. Oh, maybe to 30 inches wide. That might be carried over a little bit. Price was $8.25 with 50-cent shipping. And this is what the frame looked like. It's pretty fancy. I mean, I'd go for that. see frames like that. Not Forgotten Farm does some beautiful frames on Etsy that are table type frames. You can sometimes pay more to get the part of the construction part of the frame that will angle it. So you put like little stilts on the two back legs to angle it to give you even more sort of ease with hooking. But I just thought that this was a remarkable thing that she had designed. Her own hook is, designed to hook designs. You had somebody turn a hook for you and you put a metal insert into it. But she did design this lacing up eyelet thing for the sides of it, and she designed this frame too. And I think those two things are remarkable. In addition to the frost patterns and all of her patterns, I think those two things are really remarkable. And of course, the teacher correspondence. There's all kinds of things that she sells at the end of this book. But yeah, just the fact, discovering that she sold the sort of hardware stuff too, like the working stuff, the frame part stuff, and aids to make your frame work better, I thought was just remarkable. So let's stop there for today. Tomorrow, let's get into this catalog. This is just one of these great catalogs. There's a lot of catalogs of frost patterns, a lot of Yankee Peddler catalogs out there. This, for me, so far, is the only one that is super in-depth and informative, with a lot of history, too. So let's stick in this vein with frost patterns, Charlotte Stratton and Ruth Davis, for one more day. And tomorrow, let's look at some of these frost patterns. This is mostly black and white in this book, but it was extremely helpful for me to look at some of these frost patterns, photographs, black and white though they are, of the patterns painted on backing. Because remember, it did not take Edward Sands Frost long from designing line-driven commercial patterns that he made himself to patterns that had color. And there's a lot of photos of colored rugs in this catalog. And I find that because you just don't see them, do you? You just don't see them. If somebody bought them, they probably made them, and they're, underneath all the hooking of something that's now done, damaged, thrown out, but it's very hard to find them in any other state. So interesting. It was interesting looking for me. So I'm going to share that with you tomorrow. In the meantime, have a great afternoon. If you are struggling with the heat, be careful, be safe. Remember to drink your water. What else can one do when things are crazy like this? But I will see you in the morning, and I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait to talk a little bit more about frost. I'm thinking about the auction, working on the auction. My shoulder is a little bit better, but I have not gotten in that room to start monkeying around with huge, heavy boxes. So I'm still deciding if I'm going to run an auction or part of an auction this Friday night at cocktail night, maybe part of it this Friday, part of it next Friday, maybe part of it for a long time with all of the hundreds of things that I can put up for auction and start at like $5. So that could be really fun. I will update you on that tomorrow. Remember, if you're signing up for Van Gogh today and tomorrow, you get an email with sheets to print out. I don't know if that's considered a PDF, but documents to print out on your printer. So as long as you're signed up for it and presumably you want to print the sheets out to do the exercises and the games during the class with me, then today and tomorrow is it. And Wednesday will be the last Van Gogh class. I won't be returning to it soon because I have about 100 other ideas for artists I want to cover in our Designing Like series. Have a great day. I will see you tomorrow.